Very much. We'll catch up with you a little later on, my friend. Well, back to one of our top stories. The historic presidential election in DRC currently underway. We are now joined in studio by the researcher at UNISA. He is the researcher from the Institute for Dispute Resolution in Africa at UNISA Advocate Sipho Mantula. Advocate, always a pleasure having you with us here. We're really talking about what presidential election, legislative as well as provincial, isn't it? So correct. 3 in 1. Yeah. A lot at stake. Is there a credible environment for these elections to take place?
Thank you very much, Refreshing Money and Jumbo Africa. One can say that the issue around temperature, weather, there is a storm in Kinshasa now. There was delay. Other voting stations were not open even on the time, which is 5 o'clock. The issue around the voting gadgets, machines, they have broken in the key cities, in the North Kivu, in Goma, Kinshasa. Now, this is the challenge when you have election on this day, when you have rain, you have ICT challenge. Then as the Electoral Commission, how do you handle observer missions that comes to you and say, we are now picking up challenges in those voting stations. Monitors are even worse, they interfere on the spot. So this is the challenge of this harmonized election.
So when we talk about weather, are you saying it's likely to dramatically decrease voter turnout?
It will definitely. This is what I've raised before, that our recommendations when we were part of the SADC observer mission was that consider your calendar of the election date. Now, some parts of DRC, it is not just a drizzling rain like in Gauteng. It is a hailstorm. And again, accessibility of the voters to the voting stations, accessibility of the observers to the villages is mad. There are no proper roads. And as well, electricity factor. In the evening when they have to change the voting station to become the counting station, they are going to struggle with the counting.
So why have it in this rainy season?
I think at some point is there a strategy to delay. Normally they were in October. I know very well it was July. And if you have a run-off, it will go in October. So why have they opted for this month? We don't know. But it's something that the Electoral Commission have to really learn their lesson. The issue of the ICT as well. How do you introduce ICT into the climate where people are not yet ready? Literacy level, it is very high in that country. It is above 65%. So we cannot say that they are not literate. But the issue is the presence of the voting machines in the villages.
Let's look at the tick-tock of election day in terms of, you say the polls open at 5 a.m. What time does it close?
They will close at 5. But remember, there was a delay on other voting stations to open on time. Right. So you must create a space for them. But you don't close at 5. You close with the last person on the queue.
In the line, yeah.
And again, after the voting, after the closing, they will need to take a rest of an hour. And the voting station tends to become the counting station.
So does it immediately kick in terms of counting?
Definitely. Yeah. Hence, I said to you, a voting station tends to become the counting station, and they count overnight. Observers, they are allowed who can observe. But I think our likelihood is that observers will only observe the counting of presidential ballots. We are not concerned with the parliamentary and the local or provincial elections.
That's a problem?
And I think somehow it is, but it is very tiring because they can count until, I can tell you, until Monday. DRC elections are very complex in the sense that the counting is done in languages of their home languages, Swahili, Lingala, French. So they don't use English hardly. So observers have to concentrate overnight. Security issues are there. I've raised the issue of electricity. How do you count in the dark rooms? And the dark rooms which are muddy school rooms that are not even a proper infrastructure in that country.
Let's talk about the observers. They play a big role in these elections. And we don't have US and the EU observers.
Deliberately so, because even the EU, I think they have left already on Friday. Thursday, Friday, were given the order that within 40 hours they must have left. But this time the EU and the US, they don't observe because they had a reservation on the voting machines. But again, I think the EU and the US, we don't know, maybe they have got another intelligence report that there might be violence because they are very concerned about security of their observers. Africa have sent a few. AU, SADC, we have a low number, but the domestic observers are in high numbers.
Yeah, let's talk about the domestic observers. How are they treated?
It is very bad. They are not properly paid, first of all. They don't get proper food. They don't even have transport. They can travel 10 to 15 kilometers to voting stations. Another aspect about the domestic observers, I think what we should look is their proximity to the political issues. They know the issues. They know the electoral process. They are the sons and daughters of the DRC. They know the issues very well, but they are not treated very well. They are underpaid, and at some point they are even being undermined, and there's a doubt of their reports, because their reports are cutting edge. Because their reports, they are able to question even the international observers where they were not able to reach. Hence, I say to you, if you have 80 to 90 observers in the country of 40 million people, do you think your report will be credible, will be cutting edge? Not at all. It's only the observer mission or the local domestic that have a proper reporting skills.
Right. Advocate, you have your finger on the pulse of the people of the DRC. What's the mood among the electorate there?
The mood at the moment is that with the 3 cities that were not allowed to vote, the mood it has been tension all the way. The ordinary people, they see this vote, yes, it is our right to go and vote, but will it bring change? Will it alleviate poverty? Will it stop militia? Will it remove Kabila out of power? Will it bring the new character? But the mood, like I said to you, is not positive since there is rain, there is Ebola, there is even the crisis of post-election, what will happen in these coming days if opposition or other candidates don't accept the outcome. Will there be peace in that country? They are not certain. Then we'll have a plight of refugees in that country.
Help me understand this. I'm a bit confused with regards to, you talk about the postponement of elections in certain troubled areas till March next year. Yeah. My understanding is that the new president will be sworn in January next year. Don't those votes count?
Those votes will not even have an impact. They will even not be treated in the sense that they will count them for only provincial and local, because they have to tally them, even if they will not make any impact.
How many votes are we talking about?
We are talking about a million votes. And what is said is this disenfranchisement of rights, of right to vote of those communities. And I think the electoral law of that country need to look at that aspect. Yes, you have a state of emergency. How do you even maybe move them to another area to vote there? Because an issue was that why don't you have the special votes? If you are aware that Ebola crisis will still persist, you are aware that the militia groups will be highly active, you push for the special votes during this month, not post-election. So I think Kabila yesterday has been trying on the media to cover this aspect, which I think it was wrong. This is not the stage for political parties. It's a stage for the Electoral Commission to reassure the whole country, to reassure the international community about their state of readiness. Are they ready to deliver the credible elections?
Well, let's talk about some of the candidates and the Electoral Code of Conduct. Did all candidates sign that?
They have signed it, but what yesterday they were talking about the peace pledge.
The peace pledge,
has confused me a bit when I was looking at it to say, but you don't sign the pledge and the Electoral Code on the eve of elections. What are you saying into the mind of the actors? But are you not signing this Electoral Code of Conduct for the benefit of your supporters? Because what is key, the people who have to abide by the rules of the game is both political actors, but the supporters are them who are on the ground, who feel that pain. So I think this peace pledge yesterday, when it was denied by the 2 opposition parties, it was a sense that they feel that they will be trapped at a later stage should they reject the outcome of the result.
What sort of changes were they asking for in terms of the text of the peace pledge?
I think on the text, they wanted to reassure the issue of the Beni issue, the issue of the 3 areas that was not allowed to have the vote today. And I think on the text, again, they want to assure them that you cannot say we don't have the right to question these elections, because the other issue is around the voting machines, because they are still questioning them because they are now broken. You have an ICT crisis. Now, how do you sign the peace pledge when you have a crisis of ICT and you have this election only between today and tomorrow? I can tell you they can extend them. We don't know. But with the stormy weather in that country, it rains. It can rain until tomorrow morning.
These electronic machines, voting machines, are they still going to be used?
They will use them because they've already purchased them from South Korea. They are claiming that they are cost effective, they can deal with the fraud. But at the same time, these election machines, you still print out the ballot paper, you're still going to do the manual counting. So for me, I think ICT in Africa, it is negative impact. There's no positive impact when you think of an ICT that comes as a helicopter model where it just lands and leaves. So for me, it is a matter that let us train our people for the ICT, and the voting machines in Africa is a problem. Yeah. I've raised it before, the Kenyan story.
So what guarantees do the people of the DRC have that these machines are sound and won't be tampered with?
I think they have raised it before that the issue of the SIM card, the electronic transmission of the results is what is key in the election in the coming days. Between New Year and the 2nd and the 3rd, when people after counting transmit results, there can be easy hacking. So people are not confident about them. Like I've said earlier, your international community, the EU, US, question them. Because this is for the first time you are using them. Why don't you model them on the local government elections? Why take risk on these elections that have been delayed and that have a stake in the whole region?
Talk to us about the campaigns thus far. You know, we know that some of the top runners, Martin Fayulu, Felix Tshisekedi, we have Shadare, Emmanuel Ramazan Shadare. Yeah. Talk to us about their campaigns and how different were they?
Their campaigns were not, one can say, peaceful in the sense that Shadare could not access other areas. In fact, not Shadare. Shadare could access the whole country. Yeah. Fayulu, Tshisekedi could not access other areas due to violence. And at the same time, there was what we called militia groups in those areas. And their campaigns in Congo, they are using the media. Most of the candidates, Shadari relies on their own private TV station, radio station. Fayulu do the same. They have their own private media. Tshisekedi will rely on the social media. But at the same time, they go to their stronghold to campaign. But now we have moved that stage of campaign. Now, they are now looking at the stats, on the numbers. Yeah. Are the voters now confident to vote for us? Yeah. This is that state in the election that I say it is so complex in the sense that is voting, is counting. Now you are no longer looking at what you have said. Will the voters hold you accountable? Yeah. They have paid bribes, actually. In Congo, they are paying money to the voters to vote for them. They are giving them food, what we call the abuse of the state resource. And that's where the election patterns in Africa.
You have facts to back that up?
It is. As an observer, when you go to the campaign, official, and they are not using the Congo francs. They are using the dollars, by the way. They give them in dollars, from $10 to $20. In the poor villages, that's how election officials do. For us to can back up, it is that government and political parties, they are able to maneuver state resource during election campaign. And this is the problem that even we have in South Africa. As you know, that many elections we find government want to come and offer food parcels during election year, when all along for the past 4 years, they've not been doing that. So this is a thing that we have to look around about the use of the state resource during elections.
I want to get into the mindset of the people of the DRC, the electorate. And there's a recent poll, reportedly a recent poll by a New York-based research group. I just want to read it to you very quickly. Martin Fayulu leapfrogging from 3rd place in October to top spot with 44%. He was ahead of the former frontrunner, opposition leader Felix Tshisekedi at 23%. And then the ruling party's Emmanuel Shadare at 18%. What does this tell us about the electorate?
You know, it will tell you that the survey sometimes is done in the affluent suburb areas that people have access to be researched. But ordinary people, I can assure you, there is a mantra in that country. The governing party knows how to manipulate elections. Shadari will come as a top. But as an observer and as an analyst, you don't look at the polls. You wait for the last day of the counting. You wait for the last day of the tallying and compilation of the results. And as well, you wait for the challenge of the results. The electorate, yes, they want the new person. They don't want Kabila anymore, but Kabila has a proxy. So you are now stuck with this proxy. Fayulu, he's a new, he is the new figure per se. Tshisekedi has been there all along. But the issue is that will he have confidence to rule the country that is so fractured and so factionalized with conflict. Because that country, the conflict to this political candidate is that how are they going to manage the post-conflict reconstruction programs in that country? How are they going to deal with the multi-party democracy? Because that country doesn't have institutional democracy. That is what is worrying. You can have these characters, but if you don't have institutions, you don't have effective parliament, justice system, you don't have economic base of managing the state resource, these leaders will just be the mere celebrities.
I want to talk a bit about the current president, Joseph Kabila. And I know there's something that former presidents get. It's something called the Senator for Life, right? But do you think, knowing Mr. Kabila, will he just shuffle off into retirement or not? After all, he's in his, late 40s?
Yeah, he's in his late 40s. Kabila won't. He will stay in the parliament, and then he will even think of coming back to become the prime minister using Shadari. Their law allows them. That's why he has done it before. Gisenga, whom he was the then prime minister, was used before by Kabila in the 2006 election. So Kabila is going to come back in these elections because the DRC doesn't have active political actors. So I think Kabila will still stay into power, but as a member of parliament and still advising Shadari, because as a former head of state, you still enjoy privileges. That's how fun it is about DRC, but he's still denying the role of his family in the looting of that country.
As we wrap up, what are some of the concern areas for you in the DRC? Which areas of concern?
I think the concern areas is once we can have voters having access to the voting stations, deal with the voters' roll, which I didn't mention earlier. If in the voters' roll people don't find their names, it is a serious problem. The third aspect, it is the counting in the evening. They must have enough light. Security is very key. And as well, observers must not sleep. Observers, they sleep a lot when they're in these countries. They should try to avoid sleeping and be on the ground.
Yeah. Advocate, thank you very much indeed. Always appreciate your insight. That was Advocate Sipho Mantula, and he is from UNISA. He's a researcher there from the Institute for Dispute Resolution in Africa. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Let's take a quick break. More news after this. Stay with us.